Hello, everyone. Welcome to Relate to You. We have, again, our special guest, Adam Lopez. If you missed last week's episode on everything, all things Adam Lopez and getting to know him better, make sure to watch it. There was a lot that we learned about his passion and his journey. And so today we're going to be talking a lot about success and leadership. And as you know, if you haven't seen the last episode, Adam has been a part of a lot of different projects, ministries, and definitely his responsibilities with the community as the community liaison. And so we definitely want to touch in on how have you managed to have leadership qualities? Did you learn that perhaps in college? Is it something by working over time? But first and foremost, I think the first question is, do you need to be a person of influence in order to be successful? I think I'll start there because Adam does have a lot of networking, abilities, and he's been able to do a lot of things. And I've seen your influence. And so I feel like that's kind of already a heavy-handed question.
Wow. Well, thank you for having me here again. When you're invited for a second episode, it's because people like you, right? So I'm assuming you guys like me.
Yes,
and we did well, right? So thank you for having me again for the second time. That's a good question, Kaz, and I think that's a loaded question,
that's
actually. To answer your question, do you need to be in a position
or a person of influence?
A person, a position to be able to have influence? And I would say absolutely not. Because, a lot of what I've learned in life as leadership has been from your ordinary people. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it's life experiences, because it's journeys, it's situations that they've been through. So not necessarily you have to take a class or you have to read a book or you have to get training. Those are all good things. But many times you know that you can learn a lot from people who have been through what you're going through, but early in their life, right? And times are totally different. So absolutely not. You can be in a great position in a company and not have any influence at all. But you could be an ordinary person and have the greatest influence on people because of the knowledge that you share, your wisdom. And to me, that's what I've learned throughout my years, that it doesn't matter the tenure. I'll learn from a little kid. I'll learn from my daughter these days still. Right, the way she is, because you always learn and apply what's best to you. So anybody you engage with, but see, that's going to be not the trick, but that's going to be the secret. That in order for you to be able to grow as a leadership, you have to get out there.
Right.
You will not be able to learn anything or instill wisdom or learn wisdom if you don't rub shoulders with people. Mm. And I think we're going to talk about that a little later. So.
Yes, definitely, because I think it's very important to make ourselves aware that you don't need that position, that title, to be a person of influence. And with that, what motivates you to be a person of influence, or to try to be?
Another great question is because to me is the type of person I am is I'm always going to be in a position to want to help people. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter if it's a community member, it doesn't matter if it's a family member, it doesn't matter if it's a colleague of mine or somebody who's in the university. Like my passion and my love for helping people is always going to take priority over everything, over anything, right? So what motivates me, Marilu, is that I can impart this wisdom to hopefully help this person navigate through a situation or experience that they're in, and not make the same mistakes that I've made, right. Or help them advance to a goal faster than I did, so because now they can be able to learn the tricks or what to experience or what challenges you're going to face. So that motivates me to be the influence. It doesn't matter what capacity, but to know that people listen.
Right.
To know that people listen to you. But see, I have 3 rules here. When it comes to training or talking to people, it's 3 rules. Number 1, comprehension. How can you actually tell that somebody's really comprehending and listening what you're saying to them? Number 1. Number 2, most importantly, how do you know they're retaining the information? Retention. Mm-hmm. But number 3, that's most important, how do you know or how do you measure that they're applying it? Right? So comprehension, retention, application. Those 3 have been my number 3 principles in life when I give trainings, when I speak to people in conferences, and people look at me like, oh my God, that is true. Because like Pastor, for example, he can preach an amazing message like he did today. But how can you measure that all those people really, number one, they understood what he said, but then how are they retaining it in their heart? But then how are they going to go apply it to their lives? That's the secret. But when you're a good influencer and you can actually see the fruits of your work, and you can see like, oh my God, I can see that Marilu's applying what I taught her, what I instilled in her. I can literally see she's applying it because now she's building her own leaders, or now I can see that she's built. That's where I know she's actually retained it and applied it. But for the most part, 9 out of 10 people will not do that.
You need to duplicate yourself, right?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
where you're
Sure.
saying you need to make disciples out of you in a
Absolutely.
way, and then those will make disciples, and then so on and so forth.
And not just in church. I'm talking about in life. In life.
Even with your kids.
Even
That's
with your
what
kids.
you do.
Yeah.
You know, I think you said something about learning even from your daughter, right?
Yes.
So am I right in assuming that you go into any situation thinking, okay, this person knows something that I don't know, and I can learn from that?
Absolutely.
Do you think that is part of what keeps you humble, having that mindset?
That's one of them. But number 2 is and understanding that you don't know it all.
Right.
And number 3, knowing that you always have room to grow.
Right.
If you know that, then you'll go into every situation. It doesn't matter if I speak to my nephew Frankie, my daughter Aislene, Pastor, or brother Paul Lemos. I just gave you 4 different
People,
decades.
different ages, yeah.
Right.
And you take from each one of them. We're like, oh my God, like I'll learn something from her and you apply it. You were like, dang, like, I can take this and now I can do this. Or but more than anything, now I can have empathy. Like, oh man, so now you understand. Right. So
As you were mentioning, your 3 methods, would you say that one of the vital necessities for a leader to be successful is to be a good communicator? Can someone be of influence and be a bad communicator?
I would say that a necessary trait of a good leader is you need to have good communication, because communication doesn't mean verbal.
Right.
See, I'm not pointing at you because you're a bad communicator. I'm just saying it's just not verbal.
Right.
You have email exchange. Now you have text messages. Now you have body language. Now you have eyesight.
Which is huge.
So you cannot be a leader and be a bad communicator, because really then who are you leading, or what are you leading?
Right.
So you have to have good communication skills.
But wouldn't you say that there are people, especially like in church environments, that are placed in a position, and because of the position, people listen? Perhaps not necessarily because they're leaders, but okay, so and so said to do this, I'll do it.
Oh yeah.
How can we breach that? Of
Yeah.
like, is he or she not a leader? Or
Yeah, well, we first need to, and we're not bashing anybody. We're just talking here,
even at work,
because this is at work. It
Even
could
at
be
work.
anywhere.
Yes.
We need to go into the mindset that knowing that some individuals were placed in a position just because there was a need,
Right. Right.
not because they were the best.
a place was vacant.
Yes,
Right.
just because they had a heartbeat and they need somebody. That's really.
It's true.
So we need to understand that. Number 2, because they're in the position, they're always going to submit to authority. Like, yeah, they ask me to do this, I'll do it. So they're not really leaders. They're more like they're doers, and they're faithful servants,
Right.
but they're not leaders. Because if they were true leaders, then by this time now, they would have had their replacement. They would have built their replacement.
Right.
And I fall in that. Because who's here? Who can do community? Nobody, right? If I would have really done a good job, in making sure that I equip the next person who's going to replace me, they would have already been there. But it's not that I'm not capable. It's just that the right person probably wasn't there. So my mistake would have been, let me place this person just because I need a person.
Right. Right.
And then what? Everything.
However,
Everything would have worked for would have been like, right? So to answer your question is, you have individuals in leadership who are placed there not because of merit, not because of skill set or knowledge, or because they have the capability, but because more it was vacant and there was a need. And that's everywhere, not just church, everywhere.
everywhere. I think, because this is something that I know I've struggled with. How, first and foremost, I think I'll ask, do you think someone is born with the ability to have influence, or that's something that can be tapped into and they can learn to be a person of influence?
This is not, and it's not a fact. It's what I think, right? It's what I've seen. I don't think anybody's born a leader. You are influenced by your surroundings. You're influenced by your upbringing. You're influenced by your family. I'm gonna be honest with you. Had I not been forced to lead worship at 15 years of age, had I not had like todos los Medinas, my tios, maybe it would be a different Adam Lopez. I'm honest. Like maybe I would have just been an ordinary person, just doing the status quo, mediocre work, for lack of a better word, because it's all with the environment you're built. And I think that really builds you, because then you take that and you become your own. So I don't think you're born as a leader. I think you may have the personality, and because look,
Right.
a good leader communicator, because you have good communicators that are good communicators as they're young, right? But guess what? Some have become presidents, some have become comedians. So it's just your influence. It is just the route that you take. Some become lawyers and some become, I don't know, auctioneers. It's all because depending what your passion is. So I think it's something that you're born with, the personality and character, but you build in the leadership part of it, depending which route you want to take. If that makes any sense.
That makes sense, yes.
Right?
Now, you were mentioning, as far as discipling, do you think oftentimes leaders have a difficulty in duplicating because they take a lot of responsibility on their own? And because it works, I know how to do this, I know how to do that. It's hard to, in a sense, trust that or teach that. Because I know for me, it's hard to teach that. It's easier sometimes to just, I'm going to do it myself, because I know how to do it. What would you say is one?
Okay, so I'm going to say something here that I really hope people understand what I'm trying to say. I'm going to use the work analogy and I'm going to use a church, okay? You're a manager or a director at a company ABC, right? And you have responsibilities, 1 through 10. You're paid a salary, okay? And then, you hire another person to come and help you, okay? Or doesn't matter. And then you delegate. You have no problem delegating item 7, 8, 9, 10 to that person. Why? Because your salary doesn't change.
Okay.
Okay? You're with the same salary. You have your same position. You have the same authority. You have the same power. And you delegate to that person. And then, you get another person, you delegate 4, 5, 6. And now you only have to do 1, 2, 3 because now you have a team to manage. And even though you gave stuff away to that person, you don't change. Let's take the church. A leader, okay? There's no salary. But the moment you delegate something, you lose power. You lose authority. You lose your say. And that's something that church leaders cannot deal with. And at all levels. I'm not going to give up my power. I'm not going to give up my authority. This was given to me. There's no benefit, there's no perk, there's no pay, there's no salary. All I have is this authority in these 10 things that I do. So I'm not going to give it up.
Is that mindset of like, I need to be needed?
Yes.
That way I'm not going to share my expertise. I'm not going to share what I know because if I don't do it, they need to know that like, for example, if I'm absent one day, they need to know, oh, we need him or we need her.
Right.
And it equals ego/pride.
Yes, definitely. Ooh,
That's really loaded because, like, I know I'm processing it because I agree. Then oftentimes the mission of the church is where things are messed up, because if truly the goal of whatever department you are heading is for the benefit of the kingdom expansion and growing as a church and improving the quality of what we present and do for the community, if that isn't the main purpose and mission of what you're doing as a leader, then yes, it makes sense that someone would see it as a position of just power and authority and being needed. And so then with that, how would you think would be a good solution? Because obviously in a job setting, your motivation is your salary. Your motivation is your family, your benefits, whatever it is that ties you to that position. But how can you have a leader truly passionate for their position and what they do in the church?
It all starts because with you have to align the person with their true gift, the talent. You cannot have somebody in charge of ushers when they really are passionate for multimedia. You just can't, because you're forcing them to want to take that authoritative control over this is what I have. And it doesn't start with the pastor. It's nothing to do with the pastor of the church. It has to do with the person. Why? Because have you guys heard that saying? I don't care who gets the credit as long as the work gets done.
Yeah.
You need to be in that mindset. I can care less if Kes gets all the credit for the community resources fair. I can care less. Let her get all the credit. I don't care. Why? Because I still know that we were a blessing to people. But some leaders, no, I need the spotlight. They better tell me that they need to give me credit. And I know people that I've heard them literally tell me, porque ni siquiera la gracias me dieron. Do they have to? Like, what? Why? Wait, I thought we were doing this for the kingdom or God, right? So why are you taking that approach where like this was you? Like they have to tell you. Like they don't have to tell you anything. And that's where I think we fall into the mistakes, ladies, is that people are, number one, they feel entitled. Number two, they will never delegate responsibilities because they feel they're giving away power. And it has to do with ego, with pride. And the worst thing is this, that I'm not going to teach them how to do it. I'm not going to teach her how to do it. Why? Because they're not going to need me anymore.
Yes.
That's the biggest. They're not going to need me. Entonces, ¿para qué les voy a decir? No, chale.
Pero it's so interesting because I feel like, well, first of all, in our church, I do think that we do have leaders that are in the business of building other
Yes.
leaders.
No, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, like every other church. Yeah,
like
of course.
every other church. So I think that's what's interesting to me, that sometimes we might have those attitudes of like, oh, I'm not going to tell my secrets, or I'm not going to tell all my knowledge. But we all know that should be our end goal, to build others, to build people.
Well,
So I wonder what's going on.
well, well, first of all, we're not talking about our church only.
Right.
We're talking about in general work, other churches, businesses, agencies. I work with multiple board of directors, even in board of directors, right? So this is the thing, that a true leader, they work on equipping and preparing their replacement.
Other people, yeah.
That's the ultimate goal. And I think that's where we like. You say, how do we close that bridge? Well, first of all, we like that. Number one, that we're not assigning proper individuals according to their gifts and their talents. We're not. That's a huge mistake. Number two, we're not equipping and training and passing down the knowledge. And then number three, we're not preparing the people who are going to replace us. We're not eternal. We're replaceable. They can replace us anytime. Like, point given, not because I think, I'm all that or whatever. No, but when I left the community ministry because, I wanted to do something else, I didn't think I wanted to do special events for the church. And then pastor's not going to just put me just because he needs me. That's a good example. He assigned me. He asked me to do it because he knew of my potential to do it. And I said, you know what, Pastor? Yeah. You have a good point. Let me help you this year with that. Let's see let's make it happen. It's not like he put me in charge, of La Flor Azul or the youth, because that's not my I'm not the passion. So that's what we have to know. And this is the thing. Some people are quick to be like, yes, I'll do it. Yeah. You don't even like them. You don't even like the kids. What do you mean you can be the kids director? What do you mean you're going to be with the youth? You know what I mean? So you have to be real to yourself. No, I can't do that. That's not my passion. Pastor casual, I can't serve in that capacity. I don't have the patience for that. Or I don't feel like I'm born for that. I'd rather serve here. And that's probably the biggest mistakes that we make, that we're not serving in the capacity that we're meant to serve.
Do you think that that's a problem at the top, or because you mentioned individual, that's an individual perspective. So to me, I would say it starts with us. That's maybe a lot of people don't know what what they like. Yeah, they don't know what their gift is, and so they're stuck in a place where there was a need, and now I'm like, okay, I was asked, and I sort of like it, or whatever. Or do you think it really starts at the top?
Well, look, I'm going to take this to a whole different level because you went there already. And I'm going to present it this way, okay? I've always said this, and I've actually taught this to churches. to futures, I've always said you need to run your church like a business, but not like a business like you need to make money. No,
Right,
the
right.
infrastructure. For example, you go to a Cheesecake Factory. They're not going to just hire anybody because they're good looking. They're not going to hire me to be the safety manager just because I speak Spanish. My resume, they're going to match me with what I'm capable in my experience, right?
Right.
I've always said this. You need to run your church like a business infrastructure. Why? You go to a company, let's look at Revive Church, or let's go at any church and let's look at another company, right? So, and you both are very smart, so help me with this. The CEO and president of a company is so and so. Who's the CEO and president of a church?
Your pastor.
It's our pastor, okay? Then you have the executive management. Who's executive management in the church?
The co-pastor.
The co-pastor. And then you have the upper management leadership. Who's that at the church?
There would be some of the ministers.
The ministers, okay? And then you have the supervisors and the leads. Who are those in our church?
The administrator.
Administrators, and then you have the leaders, right? And then you have the people who run the machines, the people who work the floor.
Volunteers.
Those are all your volunteers, right? And then you have everybody else who is a congregation, okay? At a company, you're not going to go see the janitor, go tell the president, we need toilet paper.
No.
You're not. You're not going to see a supervisor telling the president, hey, a machine, we need to get a maintenance in here. No. They have protocols. They have processes in place. So why do we continue following the same thing at church when we think that everything needs to go to the pastor or everything needs to be funneled this way? There's no process. There's no structure. The moment you run the church as a business, not making money, the infrastructure, the
Right.
process, organization, protocol, chain of command, trust me, it's all going to be smooth sailing, but we don't learn that. We have not learned that. That
Do
make
you
sense?
think that's because of the size of churches oftentimes, a small church versus a larger church, or it still goes back to the infrastructure?
It doesn't matter. Even if it's Kez and Marilu, I've seen small churches run amazing than a 1,000-member church. Because it's the infrastructure, because it's the process, it's the structure, organizational, charts or whatever. And it doesn't matter if it's a 50-member church or a 5,000-member church. If you have the infrastructure, you're going to run in all cylinders. But if you don't, you're going to have these gaps. You're going to have these challenges. You're going to have bodies in positions that don't belong. You can have leaders who are not leaders. You can have et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We can go on and on and on about this.
But you would agree at some level that because it is a church, there are times where lines get blurred.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and I'm not saying that it's a good thing, but for example, we do have a lot of members that that want to speak to pastor, that want to run an idea by pastor, because we still have the mindset of like, I need the blessing, I need it for his authority to say, yes, that goes, or yes, and I would agree. Yeah, there should be a protocol, and there should be, like you said, si se necesita papel en el baño, no le vas a ir a decir al pastor, But I do think that we do have people that are like, oh, I need to tell pastor.
Yes, yeah.
And so ahí las líneas
Absolutely.
son muy delgaditas.
No, and then the pastor needs to be accessible. We get
Exactly.
that, and I'm talking about in
Right.
general, everybody. Like I'm not even talking about our church because I haven't preached this or given this teaching to our church. It's other churches I've been to, but this is the thing that. And I think you'll agree with me this as well. It's like somebody will go to the pastor, I have this idea. And then, okay, yeah, go talk to Marilu. Okay, I go. So at the end, they could have just talked to me.
That is true.
Right.
Yes.
Because it's going to go to me anyway. So, and we allow that. And that's why we're sometimes in the predicament that we're in. Because we allow those things. At the end of you, we're going to still have to ask me, why not come to me?
No, es que te imaginas que le digamos a la gente, hable conmigo.
No.
Me ofendes.
No, I get that too. You're right. But I'm saying, I'm using like the analogy that at the end of the day, when we don't have structure, we still end up in the same square.
That is true. We make circles.
We make
do
circles.
circles.
We do circles. So we can take this many different ways, this conversation. But the reality is that, we just had a great leadership training in our church, right?
We
did.
did.
And the thing is that if we don't learn from that, then I say we because I include myself, right?
Right.
Then I would have to question. Then what is the purpose then?
Soy yo.
Yeah, like is it me? So I'm the threat. It's like then we have to question then what is really your initiative? What is your purpose then?
Right.
If this didn't really instill something in you to examine your own weaknesses and shortcomings like I did, because even though I was doing the SWOT, I'm like, oh my God, like this is hitting me hard. Like
Right.
we know we have an issue, right? So anyways, we can spin this many different ways. So
I have a question regarding, meeting the need in the church, because I would say growing up, sometimes it was hard for me to figure out what my gift was, what my talent was. And oftentimes I was put in a position of leadership out of the need. And it was in serving that ministry that I found out, oh, I am good at public speaking. I am good at, I have a good relationship with the juniors. I would say for many years I was involved in the praise team and I loved it. Sometimes I think about returning, but
yes, please.
But when I started doing the juniors ministry for the first time, it was a completely different experience for me, and it tapped into parts of what I feel like now I can say I'm good at, I'm confident in doing. And had it not been for meeting that need, I wouldn't have found that out. And so what would you say are some good tips in having someone find out what they're good at if perhaps they haven't really, kind of tried different things, because that's what worked for me. And obviously working at church, you're automatically, in different ministries.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you this, and this is something that I learned, that my gift is not necessarily my ministry. It can be two different things.
Ooh. Dissect that, please.
Yes.
My gift, I would say, is that I can lead worship.
Okay.
I can lead worship and I can lead the people into the presence of God. But my ministry is community. That makes sense?
Okay, I'm processing.
So we need to differentiate that. Now, it can be that your gift is your ministry. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying to me, I learned this and somebody actually confirmed it to me. I'm like, oh my God, dude, you're right.
It can be two different
My gift is definitely leading worship and all that. But my ministry is definitely community outreach. I can see that. So you need to ask yourself really like, what's my gift and what's my ministry? Or is it the same in both? Which could be, right? But see, because there's sometimes those individuals that because of their personality and their character, they can put you in any position and you will excel at it, right? Because of who you are, your intuition, because of how you carry yourself, you can do well at it. And it might not be your ministry or talent, your gift, but through that, you're going to see that, hey, I think I love serving. I love to serve. So you already ignite that, right?
That's good.
You ignite that. But then from there, then you start searching, well, then where do I really want to serve? What is going to be my capacity? And it's what you love. You have to go back to what is it that you love to do. And many times you don't want to, accept the fact that it may be to be in charge of the women's ministry. It may be to be in charge of, doing conferences or the juniors or the kids, because everybody thinks it's going to be, I need to sing. I need to be the word. You feel that it's going to be one of those important positions in church. When in reality, it can be something that's behind the scenes. Perfect example, Brother Tony. This guy never says a peep, doesn't complain. He's always behind the scenes. He doesn't need the spotlight because, well, you know what? He knows that he's serving the capacity that he's able to, that he does a great job at, right?
Yeah.
But they're not going to put him in charge of the varones or why? Not because he couldn't be that. That's not his passion, right? So it's like in being appointed and starting to serve in a small capacity, you'll be able to ignite that passion to serve, and then you're going to be able to see this is what I want to serve. But I'm telling you, gift in ministry, man, I learned that.
Different things. That spoke to me. That really did. I'm going to analyze myself after that.
Do you think that that we get them confused?
Absolutely. Because,
and is that a bad thing?
No,
Necessarily a bad thing?
not necessarily, Marilu, but you're going to short yourself. Because you're going to feel that this is the only thing that I'm in. And I'm going to be complacent. Right? So.
Right.
So to me, it's like, oh, my gift is ministry, worship. And once I'm done with worship, I'm done. Like, no, like communities never can, like, there's so much out there for me. So yeah, people confuse them, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you are missing out.
You're limited, yes.
You limit yourself. There's no worse, when it's self-inflicted and you do this to yourself, that's the worst feeling. When you put yourself in that, and it's self-inflicted, no, pues a quién le hace la culpa? This is you.
Trae al enemigo.
Oh, diablo.
El enemigo me trae.
No, there's nothing worse than self-inflicted, being limited. So,
As a leader, in training, how do you manage that feeling of being burnt out? Because I know some experience it, some don't. I know I have experienced it in the past. How would you advise someone to either not get through to that point or manage once you're in that point, if you ever deal with that?
well, first and foremost is, it's delegation. Who's your support group? You always have to have a support group. Like, there's just like, truth be told, I rely on both of you a lot for the community stuff. Can you imagine doing that by myself? Like, no way.
Yeah.
Like this past year, Michelle was helpful. So it's like when I reach like this brick wall, I reach out to Sandra. Right? It's like you need to know who to reach out to.
Right.
You're not gonna I'm not gonna reach out to my mom because she has no clue, right? So you need to know who to reach out to. You need to have that support group that's going to be able to help you at the moment in time. They say, hey, I'm in a rut. I'm in this situation. I need you. Put me out your support group, right? But to your point, Kes, is how do you identify when you, like, the signs of you getting burned out? That's the secret, right? And it's very easy, but it's not, right? It's when you start already, number one, doubting. Second, questioning yourself, second guessing yourself. That's when you know that you're really not thinking straight. Like, you're really losing the focus and the passion because now you're second guessing yourself, you're questioning, you're doubting, and now you're losing your purpose, right? And why? Because it's not that it's doubt. It's more you're burning out. Like you're wanting a way out now instead of moving to move forward, right? So who's your support group? Who's going to keep you, in line? Who's going to come and delegate? Who are your assistants? Who's your support group who's going to help you? I can't do this, guys. Marilu, Adam, can you help me with this? We need to learn how to delegate. And going back to that, it's our ego, it's our pride. Sometimes we just won't do it. No, like I can do this. I'll do it by myself. But you can't.
Yeah.
You need to be able to trust people. I trust you when we do the fair and stuff. I trust you guys know what you're doing. Like, if I didn't game, I would burn myself out. I would. So it's knowing those signs. It's when you're already, I guess, second guessing yourself is probably going to be the number one thing. It's like, that you're already starting to feel that you want a way out more than moving forward with the process.
You talked about support system.
Yeah.
And how do you create your support system?
Oh, that's a good one. You number one, people who are aligned with your vision. You have to. Number two, people who believe in the vision. But most importantly, number three, people are going to help you carry out that vision. Like, for example, talk about community. It's very selective, the people that I can use, because they've been there, they've done that, they understand it, and they know what it takes. So I cannot just use anybody. So you need to be very selective of who's your support group, because number one, you have to be able to trust them.
Right.
They have to be able to be there at your beck and call and be able to carry you when you're burned out, when you already hit a brick wall. So it's a handful of people that I know that can help me with community, but it's because I know their capacity. I know their level. So that's how you identify your support group.
Can they be different people?
Absolutely.
Yes, in general, but like you were talking about people that know your vision, that that are with it, and that they can carry out their vision. All those can you have different people in those areas, or they all have to be all three?
Oh no, different people, absolutely.
Okay.
Because you can serve at different capacities. For example, I can use this young youth from our church to help me, with this part. But I know that once we finish this, Keja can help me carry it to the finish line. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
again, as a leader in training, what would you say is 3 or 4 vital things, or whatever your number set would be, for a successful leader? And this can be applied at work, and this can be applied at church. what would you say are the main things that make a leader successful?
Number one is a good communicator. You have to be able to communicate at all levels. We talked about verbal, body language, eye, text, email. Like, you have to be a good communicator. Number two, you have to be even a better listener. That if you can't,
I think that's where you lose people. Ow.
Oh, I have to
Bye.
listen to them?
be being a good listener makes you even a better communicator.
Which means you're going to have to talk less.
Yes. Yeah.
You lost another bunch.
Well, that's why they say that God made us with 2 ears and 1 mouth, and not 2
Yeah.
mouths and 1 ear, right?
That is true.
So we have to listen more than we talk. So communicator, a good listener. Number three, you have to follow through, which means equals consistency. And you know that that's something that a lot of people, we struggle with.
Oh, yes.
Consistency, right?
Oh, yeah.
But then the fourth one is your quality of work, not quantity, your quality of work, right? So that's already 4. Communicator, good listener, be consistent, follow through, and quality of work. And I would say that the most important one, the fifth one, is going to be teamwork. You have to work as a team. If you work in silos, you're not going to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So a good leader has, I mean, I can give you a bunch, but these 5 traits are probably going to make you effective. But these 5 are going to equip you to then the 6th one is to equip and prepare the people that come be after you.
Which is really what we all want.
Which is really the ultimate goal. But in the process, you need to have all these
Yes.
traits, right? And because then you have to instill this to the people, that come be after you or your replacement. If you don't have these, now, if you have 4 out of 5 or 3 out of 5, you can still manage. You can learn these things.
Yes.
Yes.
But you shouldn't use them as your excuse or your handicap or your crutch, right? Like, I can't do this part of my leadership because I'm not a good communicator. But I can do this. No, but you need to have, it's not one or the other. Like, you need to have these to be effective, or else you become a very mediocre leader, for lack
I
of a
like
better
that
word.
word.
Because you could argue that, when they say, oh, you're running on talent, being a good communicator could be the talent part,
Yes.
per se.
Yeah.
But the listening part is
Yeah.
where the actual work goes. And obviously
Yes.
the other ones, but that's where you could see, okay, this person's just running on talent in a sense.
Yeah, well, truth be told, there's been times where I've been asked to speak where I forget I'm going to speak, and I just make it up on the spot. And it's not because I blab, but it's the experience, right? The knowledge
Right.
that you can be able to connect with people. That doesn't make you an effective leader. That actually probably makes you a really effective leader, that you can be prepared at any given time. And you can be like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not prepared, so get somebody else. Like, no, like, you're always prepared at any given moment. But you're right, to run on talent, you're going to run out of fuel eventually. Right? How far can you run on talent only? And a lot of times that's what we do, but in reality, how far or how long are we going to take it by not only, like, I don't know, what's the word I want to use? We're being false to ourselves, Kes. How long are we going to be tricking ourselves that this is okay?
Yeah.
Because you're running on talent. People are going to catch on. Like, no,
Yeah.
he's a fake, or she's a fake, or, and many people do that.
You also mentioned teamwork. What would you give as tips? Because you've worked with a lot of,
Yes.
not just boards, but you've worked with a lot of volunteers.
Yes.
I personally think humility has to be high up there, but I don't know where it will be on your list. What tips would you give to improve your ability to work with others?
Number one, always remember that it's not one size fits all. Okay? Every team you work with, every board you work with, you need to understand that you're working with multiple egos, different personalities, different characters. You have to go in there knowing that it's not one size fits all. You have to change your hat from this board to put on now this hat, because it's different people.
Right.
Okay, so that's number one. Number two, yes, always going humble, knowing that, hey, I might not be the smartest person in the room, so I cannot go in there thinking that I'm better than them. No, I'll always learn from them. I'll be honest with you, some of the board directors that I'm on, I'm the youngest one. So I always go in there knowing that I'm just going to keep my mouth shut today, and I'm going to learn, right?
Yeah.
And if you go in with that, you don't come out with a cocky, arrogant attitude or perspective or impression. Like, no, like, humility is huge. Why? Because that opens the door, Kes, for you to always learn and have an openness to receive and be receptive
Right.
to learn. And then the next one I would say is you must have very clear maybe initiatives, tasks. Like you have to be clear. What are your objectives? What are you trying to accomplish? As a team, what are going to be our objectives to accomplish? That's important. And then number 4 probably is going to be, again, the follow through, the consistency. Like how are we
Did we
going?
achieve it?
Did we achieve it? Yeah.
And what did we learn if we didn't?
Oh, what
achieve
did we learn? The takeaways. That's always good.
it? Yeah, the takeaway.
Do a SWOT analysis. Always. Those are good. Those SWOT analysis.
Threats.
Yeah.
How do this maybe this might not apply to you, but because this applies to me. How do you deal with working with someone that intimidates you? Because to me, oftentimes it's hard for me to be in a position of leadership when I know, like, it's almost like, yes, the chip on my shoulder of like, yo qué le voy a decir? Yo qué le voy a enseñar? And it's, how do you work with someone that intimidates you?
Believe it or not, I've been there, and I've taken the approach where I always have to tell myself, like, it's not that they're better than me. They probably just have more years on me. They have more experience. They've been where I'm going through. They've been to I haven't even been through. So I always tell myself, like, if anything, like, let me absorb everything that I can. Like, I don't have time to be intimidated. Like, even though, like, I'm like, oh man, I'm in the same room, or like this guy has, 100,000 followers on LinkedIn, or like he does this and I do this, and to me, it's more like, no, like let me embrace the moment. Let me take what I can. Let me absorb from this guy or this gal and just make it my own and let them help me. I never take it like, oh, well, like, what am I going to do? What am I going to say? Because believe it or not, they don't know it all either.
No.
So there's been times where, like, I spoke in Vegas last October at a big national safety conference, okay? A room full of people, I don't know, 800, 1,000, no sé cuántos había, but there was a lot, right? I can literally see that there's safety professionals that look a lot older than I do, okay? And then at the end, they come up saying like, oh man, when you talked about this, oh, dude, you don't understand, man. That reveals so much to me. I'm thinking like, oh my God. Like this guy who has, I've been in the safety industry close to 20 years. This person that I know her, she's from Virginia. She's been like 35 years. She said she got a takeaway. She called it a golden nugget from me. So that's when I thought like, oh my, it doesn't even matter. Even the person that I think that has more knowledge than I do or has more years on me, they'll always even be able to learn even from somebody like me. So you always take that and you'll be okay.
So what you're saying is, don't go in there thinking, ¿qué le voy a enseñar?
No.
Go in there,
Right.
¿qué voy a aprender?
Yeah.
Right? And by default, you'll start eventually noticing, oh, that person also didn't know.
Exactly.
And they learn from me. Pero yeah, definitely, when you go into any situation thinking, yo qué le voy a decir, yo qué le voy a enseñar, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Absolutely.
Porque you are already intimidating yourself of a reality que no
So
está pasando.
your fear increases, your confidence decreases, and you put yourself in a really...
And people see that. People are like,
and
oh,
people
okay.
will feel that.
Yeah.
It's like a
Absolutely.
healthy level of humility, but not to the point that you think yourself so low that you can't be effective.
Well,
in
I don't
doing
think that's
whatever.
humility anymore.
Well,
at
I
that
guess
point.
humility in the sense that you're still willing to learn from the person. You're not coming in with that attitude of like, no, even.
Because I think you're humble, but you're confident, and I feel like people tend to confuse those a lot. I feel like people think that humble is, oh no, yo no sé nada, yo soy una tonta, blah 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 blah, and I don't think that's humble. That's humbleness.
Yeah.
I think humble is knowing that no, I know I'm intelligent. I know I might not know everything, but I'm capable of doing things.
Right,
I'm just not gonna boast about it. I'm not gonna be. I don't step on people
Right.
for them to realize that I'm this and that and that. I think that's humbleness. I don't know.
How would you
say
define humility?
humbleness is?
No, well,
or humility.
it's because it's different levels, right? Like you're explaining different levels. And to Kez's point, I think that if you were to take that, I feel intimidated, and turn it into like, let me not humble myself. That's probably not the word, because you're not going to be humble. It's not even humility. It's more of acceptance that I'm in a position to learn, not to feel threatened, or not to feel intimidated, or not to feel less of, or demeaning. Like no, like just take that situation, and I guess to a certain point you are becoming more humble. But in the sense, not that, like, no sé nada, he knows more like, I know that I'm in a position to learn.
Yeah.
I know that I'm in a position to grow. So, and then to your point is like, yeah, that level of like, no, soy una tonta, no tonto, like no sé nada, like that's not even, that's like just putting yourself down, like literally, right? So it's a whole different level. It's insecurity. But people do mistake that sometimes.
I think
yeah,
they
they
do all
do.
the
Absolutely,
time.
absolutely. So it's just a matter of just shifting it, like pivot this way and take it more of a learning opportunity and set yourself up to be a sponge and just absorb it all. I think you'll be fine.
Before we finish, I want to talk about, because I've been reading this book lately about how to win friends and influence people. And a lot of what I'm reading, you're speaking about it. And but you talked about listening, and I feel like we don't do enough of that. I feel like a lot of people love to talk, but for those that are trying to develop leadership skills, listening is huge, because if people already love to talk, they can reveal a lot of who they are and what, right? So would you say that in your years of leadership in training, would you say that you've vetted people, by just listening to them?
Yes. I would say that the best communicators, no, let me rephrase this. The best type of communication is listening, which is a whole it's contradictory, right? It's a contradiction.
Could sound,
but
yes.
That's the truth.
An oxymoron.
Why? Yeah, it is oxymoron. Why? Because you're allowing the person, right, to open up to you.
Right.
Okay. And the moment that you just listen, right, you, number one, you're not only vetting them, but you are entrusting them, like you're giving them your, number one, undivided attention.
Right.
That's huge for anybody. Number two, you show them that you really care what they have to say. That's number two. But number three, to a certain point, you're going to start to feel empathy, like understand where they're coming from. Okay. Because if I say, hey, Marilu, okay, tell me what's your problem? Oh, well, I fought with my husband or with my partner, right? That's all you tell me, okay? And then I'm going to think that I have a best result for you, and I'm going to tell you what I think is the best advice without even hearing what the issue was. Right. But if I say, Marilu, tell me in detail, what is the issue you and your husband are facing, and tell me how has your relationship been for the past 30 days? And then you tell me your whole story. Then I can make an assessment and tell you based on what everything I heard, because I allowed you to speak to me and I listened. Then I can communicate effectively to you.
Right.
But if I don't, then I'm just going to tell you what I think is right without even knowing the substance or the content of the issue.
Yes.
So the best form of communication is listening. Okay, Joel?
Honestly, I'm processing a lot of things, because obviously I'm kind of still in a transition for my leadership, and what I'm going to do in the future. So I'm learning a lot. I do want to ask you a little bit about your podcast as well as we start to close, because, Lula and I are obviously starting, we love what we do and we're enjoying this, but I can't close this episode without mentioning Mr. Over 3,000 followers over here, ¿verdad? And on YouTube now, yo no sé the other platforms.
We didn't know you were on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I didn't even know the LinkedIn.
We need to look that up.
Yeah, check it out.
So claro, no nos digas tal vez todos tus secrets, but what would you say what could help us in improving our little podcast?
I would say it's not little. I mean, any podcast is great. Number one, I like the setup. I've been to set up more like...
He's been to humble.
I'm like, what? No, so number one, I think it's really cool. Number two, I've heard your conversations. I'm going to tell you this. Don't stop laughing. Okay? Don't stop laughing. That laughter and sentiment of crying is what tugs at the heart. So just remember this. People want to hear, people don't care what I do. People want to know why I do it.
Ooh.
I always remember that. Okay? They can care less what I do. They want to know why I do it. So always remember that when you have listeners, you have viewers who see this and watch this, when you get personal with people, okay, when they start talking about personal stuff like my infertility stuff, that tugs at the heart. If you have conversations that tug at the heart, you're going to win more listeners. Ooh. Okay? Yes. Don't talk about social media. Don't talk about stuff that's irrelevant. Talk about stuff, people's journeys, people's experiences, people's pain. Why? What made the journeys? Talk about the journeys. Not don't talk about Aislinn. Talk about the 11 years it took us to have her.
Yeah.
People are going to be like, dang, they'll connect to that. So number one, keep the humor. Number two, tug at the people's heart. Tug at the people's heart. Number 3, make it relevant to today's day. Make the conversations relevant. Talk about, everything, the finances. Talk about government. Don't criticize. And always remember this. It's good to always say, this is my personal opinion. This is not a fact. This is not I'm not trying to convince you, but this is what I think about this. You always have to reaffirm the fact that you're just, this is what I think. It's just a personal opinion, and you'll be fine. I think you'll be great.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Adam, for being with us and giving us, a piece of the secrets of your success and your time, which, now we know it's valuable. Time is valuable. If we go back to what you taught us last time of ATM. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
We hope that we were a good investment.
Absolutely. I love this.
And to you all, please check us out on Spotify, on Instagram, obviously here on YouTube. Thank you so much for supporting us. And please go check out Candid Conversations on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram.
All digital platforms. Yeah, everywhere.
Everywhere.
Check it out.
All right. God bless. Bye.
Thank you.